I've got Rampage, and look, I love The Rock so much. I'm very vocal about how much I love The Rock. I love bad Sci-Fi Channel original movies like Sharknado and Mega Shark vs. Giant Octopus. I like video games, and for those of you who don't know, Rampage is based on a video game. So really, I should have liked this movie so much more than I did. It was just so disappointing. I'll say it's the best Sci-Fi Channel-esque original movie I've ever seen.
That's a thing?
Oh, yeah, they're totally a thing where they do these super cheesy, like, oh, here's a, giant shark, basically, that's going to fight a giant octopus for some reason. It's like bad special effects, B-list 80s actors who make a reappearance. Just look up the cast of people who have been in these types of movies before. So this is like taking that template and then giving it the biggest star in the world. So you'd think it might be okay, but even Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson couldn't save this movie, which was so upsetting because I love him so much.
That's too bad. But it's a video game movie, so it should be okay, right?
And this is from the people who did San Andreas, which I saw on a plane, and it was okay.
Yeah, like, look, the template is a giant monsters show up and The Rock has to save them. Like it's a pretty standard movie monster template thing. And a giant earthquake happens. The Rock has to save everyone. Like it's a pretty standard Rock formula. I will say, I think the best actor in this movie is George the giant CG albino gorilla.
He's cute.
He's actually like, it's a good act. Like they really animated him well. So the idea is some crazy space experiment that some company is doing. The space station blows up and the formula of whatever they're doing lands on Earth in very different locations. I was like, that's not how space debris really works. Like the trajectories of these things should have landed much closer. Anyway, nerd moment. And so it hits all these animals, including George, the albino gorilla that is in San Diego that The Rock is the primatologist for, which you want to talk about like a stretch of a role. Like last week we were talking about, what does John Cena do that he looks like that in Blockers? What does The Rock do that, he became a primatologist and looks like The Rock? Anyway, so it's one of those moments you're like, you know what, just gloss it over. So George gets hit. A couple other creatures get hit and they go on a rampage. Wah, wah, wah. So again, it could have been fine. It was not. Naomie Harris, who's such a great actress, plays a scientist who works for like the evil corporation who engineered all this. Malin Akerman and Jake Lacy are the owners of the company, and I'm sorry, they are terrible. Like they were not good in this. They were like chewing the scenery and just such bad plasticky villains. And then Joe Manganiello, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and Will Yoon Lee all play like government agents who get involved. So it's actually a pretty good cast who just I feel like they just maybe needed a paycheck is what this comes down to. And again, I love dumb monster movies smashing things to bits, but this just should not have been like this. God knows what the budget was, and it did not feel like it paid off. And it's also like a 2-hour-long movie. I'm not going to lie. I might have taken like a 5-minute disco nap in the middle and missed nothing from, I missed nothing, which means you could have at least shaved 5 minutes, if not more, off of this movie. Like if it had clocked in about an hour and a half, maybe it would have been better. But it's also tonally, it's like, oh, they'll make like jokes. Like George the gorilla and The Rock are making jokes together. And then suddenly it's perilous moments. And then they'll make a joke again. And then it's perilous moments. I'm like, what is this movie trying to be? You're going to get whiplash from like their attempts at humor and then action and then humor and action. So look, if you are a fan of this stuff anyway, and you have been warned, I've just warned you, and you're still like, I still want to go see that movie, go ahead. You're going to have a fine time. You'll have some popcorn, you'll have a giant soda, but don't forget it's a 2-hour movie, so go to the bathroom beforehand, and you'll have a good time. If you were like on the fence and you're like, oh, this could be like a good Rock movie, it's not. It's one of like lower on his filmography. So I'm only going to give it 2.5 out of 5.
Okay, well, skip Rampage then, because movie tickets are expensive.
Movie tickets are expensive.
Come
yeah,
on.
maybe if you have Movie Pass, like this is a movie for you. But like honestly, I wanted it to succeed. I really was super excited for it. But
you have another one. Is it better?
I think so. I think they're very different. So it's hard to compare, right? Rampage is this huge, big blockbuster. Borg versus McEnroe is the other movie I have, and it's a much more like down-to-earth film. So it's based on the Wimbledon match between Bjorn Borg and John McEnroe, which is a real match in 1980. And I'm going to butcher the names of the actor. It's Sverrir Gudnason, who's Swedish.
Sounds right.
Sure. Is Bjorn Borg, and Shia LeBeouf is John McEnroe. And I have to say, though, there's like very early on, there's like a montage of him as like McEnroe freaking out. Good casting choice. It worked.
He
it
even
weirdly
looks
worked.
like him.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing.
I was like, he got into like the weird psycho rage moments. I was like, oh, this is pretty interesting. So,
Arthur, why do you hate him real quick?
Shia LaBeouf, because he beat me out for holes and ruined my entire future.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, continue, Dana.
Yeah. No, comment. I got nothing on that. Yeah. But I have to say, like, he was a good casting choice in this. I don't know if you have enough rage within you to have played John McEnroe in this one.
Oh, no, I do.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
I do.
Well.
I can channel it.
But I have to say, so much like last year's Battle of the Sexes, which was the Billie Jean King tennis story.
Yeah.
I didn't know the outcome of this match. It's obviously public knowledge and history. So for me, at least, there was that element of like, what's going to happen? What's the big deal? Because Borg had won 4 Wimbledons in a row and was the #1 ranked player. And if he'd won 5, he would have like been a record-breaking person. He was also like 25 at the time, which is insane. And then John McEnroe was #2 in the world and was challenging him for the spot.
And drug addict, right? At the time, he was kind of cheating, wasn't he? Wasn't it like a Lance Armstrong type thing?
I don't know. They don't go into that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just more about, he gets really frustrated because everyone's focusing on his personality and not his tennis.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that for me at least was helpful in that, like, I was like, oh, what's going to happen? This could go either way. And the more interesting part of the movie was following their respective kind of childhoods and growing up in like the tennis world, I guess. And even though McEnroe is the one we know as a rageaholic or whatever, like seeing Bjorn Borg's history and hey, he was a very serious player and very I want to say repressed really publicly by that point in his career, but when he was a kid he was like a rageaholic too. And so it was interesting seeing how the two of them kind of coped differently with those things. And like Bjorn Borg had all these like superstitions about like his bag has to be packed exactly a certain way before they have to have the exact same car when he's going to a match and this and that. It's like I get it. Sports superstitions are something I totally get. So but I have to say, a lot of sports movies are able to transcend, like, if you don't watch tennis, it'll be like, oh, it's fine. Or, like, if you watch, like, Remember the Titans, you don't have to be a football fan to love Remember the Titans. Mm-hmm. For this one, because so much of the second half of the movie is very much about the tennis match, I got a little bored because I'm not a tennis person. And I was just like, okay, at this point, it almost would have been more interesting to actually just watch the live match, and just like watch the replay of it because, it took up a good portion of the last part of the film. And I, again, just wasn't into it because I was like, this is going to end one way or another. It's not like you could like tie or any, So for me, like, I was like, oh, this is starting to drag a little bit. Like, I wish they'd cut maybe like 10 to 15 minutes out of that last bit. Or they'd just condense that part and focus more on their personalities because that was the most interesting part. Them as competitors, them as off the court. We've seen them on the court, whatever.
Yeah.
It's what we care about anyways. I thought the performances off the court are great. I think they were very interesting. But overall, I do think it flags at the end for me. So unless you are a really, really big tennis fan, you just be aware that it might drag a little bit at the end. So I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 5.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
that's
it was good. I just wish it had been like a little bit different at the end because again, I was kind of checking my watch by the end, so that's always not a great sign.
Disco nap.
Yeah, I did not disco nap during this one though, so at least there's that.
And what's it called again?
Borg versus McEnroe.
There you go, Shia LeBeouf. Is he back? Is this it for him?
I don't know. Everyone keeps saying that about him, and I'm like, oh, this is a good role, but how many other of those roles? But who knows?